Sharing tough or tragic news with your kids is one of the hardest things every parent has to do.
I think kids have this hopeful positivity about them, and that is something we can definitely use in the midst of tragedy. I do believe at any age you can talk with kids about sad news.
You know, when it comes to talking to my kids, there are definitely times when I might gather my older kids together in a room and talk to them about an event and not necessarily share that with the younger kids.
The age is obviously probably the most important thing, the age of your child. And I'm not just talking their chronological age, but their emotional maturity. It's quite possible a 9 or 10-year-old might not have the emotional maturity or resilience of a 6-year-old. And only you, as their parent, will know that.
You can start with simple, basic information and then let their questions, if they have any, steer that conversation. And I think those conversations really help them to define their world, and it's way healthier than leaving them confused in the dark, or getting details from their friends or, a TV that's left on.
I want them to hear about the issue from me so that they get the facts straight. And I want them to understand that, yes, it is tragic, but that's a rare occurrence. And yes, it did sadly happen to someone else, but that doesn't mean that they need to go to school in fear that it's going to happen to them.
Will my child hear about this through other means? Through school, preschool even, grade school, the internet, newspapers, television. If there's a remote chance that your child will be exposed to some of those more worldly global events, you need to talk to them. They need to hear it from you.
If it's something that's made me visibly upset in front of my children, crying or angry or shocked, then it's definitely up for discussion.
I'm a big believer in showing my kids my emotion. I think it's really important, especially as a dad, to not hide how I'm feeling. If you feel like you're not at a place emotionally yourself to share news, give yourself some time to calm down and even practice what you're going to say.
I'm a big believer in not underestimating kids and their ability to process big emotions and help us process them too.
To help my kids express emotions, we would write notes. Say it was the loss of Grandpa. We would write a note to Grandpa, pin it to a helium balloon, and let it fly up into the sky. Again, these are simple things for children, but they're very tangible, and they're a way to connect some feeling to something tangible.
I also think that talking about tragedy with your kids is a good context for having other difficult but necessary conversations. So for example, if a tragedy has struck a child or children, I might use that as a context for discussing safety with my kids.
I think the most important thing when it comes to talking to your kids about any sort of a tragic event is they need to walk away with that comfort that they can come to you and that they can talk to you about anything, and that you're not going to dismiss their concerns as silly or insignificant, that you will always be there for them.
The most important thing for a child is safety on all levels of the spectrum. So when a child feels unsafe, their world becomes upside down, and you need to be aware of that as a parent.
Depending on the age of the kids, they really just want you to cover the basics of what happened, and then they want the assurance.
By talking with my kids about tragedy, I'll be able to model empathy and compassion and other healthy emotions that help us deal with tragic events.
But I think it's also important to follow up, later that afternoon, the next morning, to talk about maybe how they're feeling. And you might start it by saying, I still feel really sad about those tornadoes in Oklahoma. It makes me really sad to think about those people who lost so much. How do you feel?
I think kids deserve to know the honest truth, that life is incredibly wonderful and beautiful, and it's incredibly sad and sometimes scary. But what's super important to me is that they know that we are in it together.